If you were just scrolling through your newsfeed earlier this week, you probably saw this photo op in East Africa that looked, well, totally boring.
Mm.
It was just three guys, standing in the sun, cutting a ribbon for a new park. Standard diplomatic fluff.
Right? On the surface, absolutely. It looked like a municipal city council meeting. If you didn't know the players, you would just scroll right past it.
But we looked closer. We looked at the source material and specifically where they were standing and realized this isn't just a ribbon cutting.
No.
This is potentially the funeral for a 70-year-old ideology.
It's a massive signal. You have the leaders of Somalia and Djibouti standing inside Ethiopia, and they're basically rewriting the rule book on who owns what in the Horn of Africa.
So today we are taking a hard look at this visit to Jigiga. We're basing this on an analysis piece called Somalia and Djibouti Leaders' Visit to Jigiga raises questions over a greater Somalian narrative.
Right.
And my big question for you is, how does a tourism project, of all things, end up threatening the national identity of an entire country?
That is the question. And to answer it, we have to talk about lines on a map versus the lines that exist in people's heads. Because for the last century, those lines haven't matched up at all in this region.
Right. So let's establish the geography before we get into politics, because otherwise this just sounds like three guys hanging out. The location is Jigjiga. Where is that exactly?
Jigiga is the capital of the Somali regional state.
Okay.
And this is where it gets tricky, like immediately.
Okay.
It is politically and legally inside Ethiopia. It is sovereign Ethiopian territory. But the population is almost entirely ethnic Somali. Culturally, linguistically, religiously, it's Somali.
Okay, so it's a classic border region.
It's more than a border region, it's a wound. For decades, this region, it's often called the Ogaden, was the center of a massive tug of war.
A tug of war.
Yeah, in 1977, Somalia and Ethiopia went to a full-scale war over this specific piece of land. Somalia invaded to try and, quote, liberate it.
So historically, the government in Mogadishu looked at Jigiga and said, that's ours.
Exactly. They viewed it as occupied territory. Thousands and thousands of people died fighting over that claim. For Somali nationalists, it's hallowed ground.
And that brings us to the guests who actually showed up at this very charged place.
The host was Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and his guests were the President of Somalia, Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, and the President of Djibouti, Ismail Omar Guelleh.
Wow.
They flew into Jigiga, walked down a red carpet, and stood side by side with the Ethiopian leader.
And the vibe wasn't tense. Nobody was mentioning the war.
Quite the opposite. It was a love fest. Prime Minister Abiy posted a welcome message saying, "Welcome to Ethiopia, my Horn of Africa brothers." They were hugging, smiling, talking about regional integration.
See, that's the part that feels surreal. If you're a Somali nationalist, watching your own president land in Jigiga, not to claim it, but to visit it as a guest of Ethiopia, that has to feel like a betrayal.
It's a total paradigm shift, and that's where this concept of Somaliland comes in. The article mentions it heavily.
Somaliland. I know the basics. It translates to Greater Somalia, but in this context, why is it such a loaded term?
It's the foundational dream of the Somali nation. Think about the Somali flag. It's a blue background with a white, five-pointed star in the middle.
I can picture it, yeah.
Do you know what those 5 points represent?
I assume they were just a design choice.
No, they represent the 5 regions where ethnic Somalis live. Only 2 of those regions are in the actual country of Somalia today.
Only 2?
Yeah, the former British and Italian colonies. The other 3 points of the star represent Djibouti, the Northern Frontier District in Kenya, and the Somali region of Ethiopia.
Wow. So the flag itself is a map of a country that doesn't legally exist.
Exactly. The ideology of Greater Somalia says that all 5 of those points should be united under one government, that colonial borders are fake and should be erased.
So for the president of Somalia to go to one of those missing stars, to Jigiga, and celebrate an Ethiopian government project there,
He's basically admitting that the star is never going to be united.
he's implicitly recognizing Ethiopia's sovereignty over that territory.
Yes. He's saying, this is your house, and I'm just visiting. It is, as the source argues, the death knell of pan-Somali politics.
That is a heavy, heavy signal to send just to open a park. Because that's the official reason they were there, right? The Shabelle?
Yes, the Shabelle Resort. It's a tourism and development initiative. The goal is to create jobs, showcase the culture, and boost the economy of the region.
I mean, I'm cynical about photo ops, but is the project itself actually real? Or is it just a backdrop?
It's real in the sense that money is being spent and infrastructure is being built. But in the context of three heads of state meeting, it's a prop.
Right.
You don't get the president of Djibouti to clear his schedule to look at a hotel construction site unless there is a much bigger game being played.
And the bigger game is what?
The shift from ideology to pragmatism. The source calls it regional pragmatism. The leaders are deciding that economic integration roads, trade, tourism, stability is more valuable than holding on to 70-year-old grudges about borders.
It sounds rational. Like, hey, let's stop fighting over lines on a map and actually make some money and improve people's lives.
It is rational. It's the logic of the modern world.
Yeah.
But, and here's where the headache starts, this new pragmatism exposes a massive, glaring contradiction.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Okay.
Because if we are talking about Somali unity and borders, we have to talk about Somaliland.
We have to. It's the elephant in the room that wasn't invited to the party.
Okay, I want to be careful here because this gets confusing. We have the Somali region in Ethiopia, where they are visiting, and we have Somaliland, which is different.
Correct. The Somali region is a state inside Ethiopia. Somaliland is a region in the north that declared independence from Somalia way back in 1991.
Right.
They have their own government, their own money, their own police force. They function as an independent country, even though the world hasn't recognized them yet.
So here is the mess. The president of Somalia is in Ethiopia, high-fiving Abiy Ahmed and celebrating the Somali regional state, managing its own affairs and developing its economy.
He is. He's calling them brothers. He's praising their self-determination within Ethiopia.
But if you go a few hundred miles north to Somaliland, which is also full of ethnic Somalis and has been peaceful for 30 years, Mogadishu refuses to let them go.
That's the hypocrisy the sources are screaming about.
It makes absolutely no sense. Why is self-determination okay in Jigiga under an Ethiopian flag, but illegal in Hargeisa under a Somaliland flag?
Because in Jigiga, the sovereignty of the Somali state isn't threatened. Ethiopia owns Jigiga. Mogadishu has accepted that reality, however painful it is for the nationalists. But Somaliland, that claims territory that Mogadishu still thinks belongs to them.
So it's basically, you can be prosperous and happy as long as you belong to someone else, but don't you dare try to be free on your own.
Cruel? That accurate. And that's why this visit stings so much for the people in Somaliland. They see their supposed parent country getting cozy with Ethiopia, the historical rival, while actively blocking their own attempts to get international recognition.
And this isn't just a passive blocking, right? The source mentions that tensions are high.
Very high. And this is where the host, Abiy Ahmed, is playing a very dangerous or perhaps very brilliant game.
Oh, so?
Because while he is hugging the president of Somalia and Jigiga, he's also been, let's say, texting Somaliland on the side.
The famous port deal.
Right. Ethiopia is landlocked, they have 120 million people, and no access to the ocean. Abiy Ahmed is desperate for a port.
Desperate.
So he signed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, with Somaliland. The deal was essentially, you give us a naval base and port access, and we might recognize you as an independent country.
Which obviously drove Mogadishu insane.
It means is an understatement. They called it an act of aggression. They rallied the international community. They said Ethiopia was trying to steal their land.
And yet, here they are in Jigiga, all smiles for the cameras.
That is the triangulation.
Yeah.
Abiy has managed to host the president of Somalia, talk about brotherhood, and yet, and this is critical, he has not canceled the deal with Somaliland. He hasn't apologized. He hasn't backed down.
So he's keeping Somalia close to prevent them from freaking out, while still keeping that door open to Somaliland because he needs the ocean.
Exactly. And the source points out another layer to this, the Israel factor.
Oh, right. I saw that in the notes. What does Israel have to do with the Horn of Africa right now?
Well, there have been reports and rumors, which Mogadishu is very worried about, that Israel might be considering recognizing Somaliland, or at least strengthening ties.
And Abiy.
Abiy Ahmed has not condemned that. He hasn't spoken out against it.
So by staying silent, he's kind of letting the pressure build on Somalia.
He's leveraging uncertainty. He's showing Mogadishu, look, I can be your best friend. We can do projects in Jigiga.
Right.
I have other options. It's classic power politics.
It really highlights how messy this shift is. We started by talking about pragmatism, but pragmatism in this region looks a lot like two-faced diplomacy.
It does. But look at the alternative. The alternative is the ideology of the 1970s war, closed borders, stagnation. The source argues that many commentators see this Jigiga visit as a diplomatic turning point. They see it as the region finally moving toward development-driven diplomacy.
Development-driven diplomacy. That sounds great in a think tank paper. But what does it actually look like on the ground?
It looks like the Shabelle Project. It looks like focusing on things you can touch, hotels, roads, power grids, rather than things you can feel, like national pride or historical grievances.
So effectively, money is rewriting the map.
Or at least money is making the borders permeable. If you have strong trade and tourism between Jigjiga, Mogadishu, and Djibouti, maybe it doesn't matter as much where the line is drawn.
That's the optimistic view.
That is the very optimistic view. The cynical view is that these leaders are just securing their own regimes by making deals with each other while ignoring what their populations actually want.
Because, going back to the flag, those 5 stars, there are millions of Somalis who grew up believing that their destiny was unity. What happens to them when they see their president drinking tea in Ethiopia and effectively saying, never mind?
That's the danger. You can sign treaties in air-conditioned rooms, but if the people on the street still believe in the old dreams, you haven't fixed the problem. You've just painted over it.
Right.
The source mentions that while this visit is a huge signal, it's unclear if it's a lasting transformation.
Right, because political winds in the Horn can change so fast. Today, they are brothers. Tomorrow, if Abiy actually recognizes Somaliland.
Then the brotherhood is over. The ribbons get cut, but the bridges get burned.
It really feels like we are watching the software update of the Horn of Africa. The old operating system was based on clan, blood, and Greater Somalia.
And the new operating system is purely transactional. It's infrastructure first, identity second.
But that leaves me with a difficult question. If sovereignty is becoming this transactional thing where it's just about who can sign the best port deal or build the nicest tourism park, what happens to the people who still care about the flag?
That's the disconnect. We're moving into an era where sovereignty might just be a business arrangement. But for the person living in Somaliland who wants a passport that works, or the person in the Ogaden who remembers the war, it's not business, it's personal.
A business contract disguised as a peace treaty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those usually have an expiration date.
Well, that is a lot to chew on. We went from a boring photo op to the potential end of a nation's dream.
We didn't even have to fly to Jigiga.
Thankfully not. That's all for this deep dive. We'll be back next time with another stack of sources and another story that changes how you see the world.
Stay curious.
See you next time.